In the early 2030s, a small research group was working deep in the wide deserts of Mongolia, where dry winds carried dust across endless miles of sand. They were not searching for anything unusual, only studying rocks and ancient soil layers when one of their scanning machines showed strange readings. The ground below them was not natural. It gave a strong metallic echo, like something huge and hollow was hiding far beneath the surface. At first they thought it was a mistake. The readings kept jumping every few seconds and the compass needle spun in circles. The leader of the team decided to dig a small area just to see what was there. They used simple tools and machines, but soon strange things began to happen. Their radios stopped working, their watches froze, and their generator kept shutting off as if some invisible force drained all the power. Still they kept digging, because curiosity was stronger than fear. After 3 days of careful work, they reached something hard. It was smooth and cold even under the burning desert sun. The color was dark silver with a faint blue shine. When light touched it, one of the researchers tapped it with a hammer, and the sound echoed deep, like it was part of a huge hollow structure. Underground, they realized they had found something not from this earth. Word spread quickly among higher officials, and within days military trucks arrived surrounding the site. The area was closed off with metal fences, and the research team was moved away. New people in black uniforms came carrying heavy equipment and secret files. They told the locals it was a mining project, but the truth was locked behind silence. The government wanted to know what was buried there and how old it was. Weeks passed and a large tent covered the entire site. The scientists who were brought in came from many countries. They all worked quietly, day and night, trying to open a part of the metallic structure, but nothing could cut it. Lasers melted ordinary steel, but not this material. It felt alive. It was cool to touch, yet sometimes small vibrations ran through it like a slow heartbeat. One evening, a young physicist named Hanna Lestov stayed longer than others. She was studying the surface with her gloves on when a soft humming sound came from the metal. She removed one glove and touched it with her bare hand. At that very moment, a gentle pulse of light passed under her palm. It moved like ripples on water. The hum grew deeper, and everyone around felt the ground tremble slightly. Hanna pulled back in fear, but the lights disappeared again, leaving behind silence that night. The team wrote reports, yet no one could explain what caused it. The next morning, soldiers noticed strange patterns. Glowing faintly across the metal walls, they looked like symbols or letters, but none matched any human language. The team took pictures and tried to decode them, thinking it could be ancient writing, but the shapes changed slightly every few hours, as if they were alive. Some believed it was reacting to sound. Others said it was reacting to human presence. No one was sure. The scientists decided to name the object the core until they could find what it truly was. Soon drones flew above the desert, taking aerial images, and they found the metal piece was only a small part of a much bigger shape, buried deeper under the sand. Using ground scanners, they saw outlines of what looked like a massive craft, maybe hundreds of meters long, hidden for centuries, if not more. The discovery became the center of a secret operation later known as Project Solace. Military engineers built a huge underground lab around the buried structure, covering it completely from satellites. Scientists lived there for months, studying the material and its strange energy waves. Every electronic device worked differently near the object. Computers slowed down, data vanished, and cameras sometimes captured moving lights that were not seen by human eyes. Despite all these strange events, the team continued their work, slowly cleaning the layers of sand and rock around the object. Soon the full shape began to appear. It was not just a random piece of metal. It was a ship, smooth curved and beautifully designed. With long wings melted halfway into the earth, parts of it were broken and dark, as if it had crashed long ago. When Hanna saw the full structure for the first time, she stood silent. She felt both small and amazed. She could not believe something so perfect could be hiding beneath ordinary ground. People around her whispered softly, wondering who made it and why it was here. The more they uncovered, the more they realized this was not a weapon, nor a satellite. It was something far greater. The material was lighter than air, yet impossible to break. The inner chambers that they managed to open were empty, but the air inside was pure and untouched by time. The walls carried small lights that flickered when people came near. Some said it felt like the ship was watching them, learning from them. The scientists could feel the energy it gave off. They said it was not dangerous but powerful in ways they could not understand. One night, while the wind howled outside the desert tents, Hannah stayed. Alone inside the ship's open chamber, the air was still and warm. Her flashlight flickered, then went out. Suddenly a faint blue glow lit up the floor lines, appeared spreading outward like veins. They formed patterns that pulsed slowly. She felt fear but also peace. She whispered softly, asking if anyone was there. The walls answered with a low echo like a sigh. Then everything went dark again. She ran outside, trembling, and told her team what she saw. They thought, maybe she was tired. Maybe it was her imagination. But when they went back in, they saw the same patterns glowing again. Everyone fell silent. It was proof that the ship was not dead. It was only sleeping. Soon, the whole base came alive with excitement. Tests were made every hour. They measured radiation energy and vibration levels, but none of the readings made sense. The ship seemed to absorb energy when they tried to power it, then released it back stronger when they stopped touching it, like it was feeding on attention. One day the outer layer opened slightly, revealing a smooth tunnel leading deeper inside. Air poured out, smelling like rain after a storm. Hannah and 2 others were chosen to enter. They walked slowly, flashlights shaking inside. It was quiet. Too quiet. Walls smooth like glass, their steps echoed and the air felt heavy. They found what looked like a control chamber. In the center of it was a round pedestal covered with dust. When Hannah placed her hand near it, the blue lights returned stronger, this time filling the chamber. The floor trembled, a deep sound filled the air, not like an alarm, but a heartbeat. Outside the ship, the entire desert shook. Sensors flashed red and electric storms formed above the camp. Lightning bolts danced in the sky. Even though there were no clouds, machines failed again and people shouted, trying to keep order inside. Hannah watched as strange images began to appear in front of her eyes, holograms of stars, galaxies, and unknown symbols spinning slowly. She felt dizzy, then everything stopped in one sudden breath of silence. The ship's lights dimmed again, leaving behind only a weak glow. The storm above vanished as fast as it came. It was over, but nothing was the same after that moment. They all knew they had touched something far beyond human creation, something old, wise, and maybe waiting. The higher authorities soon ordered total silence. No one outside could know what had happened. Soldiers guarded every entrance and communication lines were cut. Scientists signed papers promising secrecy. Hannah was told not to speak about what she saw. But deep inside, she could not stop thinking about that heartbeat. She felt the ship was not just a machine. It was alive in its own way. Watching, waiting for a reason to wait completely as weeks turned into months. The excavation site became a small underground city hidden under sand, while above it all looked empty. Below, hundreds of people worked quietly, studying every inch of the alien craft. Late one evening, Hannah looked at the sky and wondered how long it had been lying there, maybe thousands of years. Maybe since before humans even built cities. What if someone left it here on purpose? What if they knew humans would one day find it? Those thoughts stayed with her every night. She dreamed of stars and strange voices whispering like memories from another world. She believed the ship had chosen to reveal itself, not by accident, but by timing. And soon she would learn that its awakening was only the beginning of something much greater that would change the fate of humanity forever. After the strange awakening of the buried ship, the desert base grew larger every month, and more scientists, engineers, and soldiers were sent there under different cover names. The world outside had no idea what was happening under that sand. Everyone who worked there signed silence papers and was cut off from their families. The project was now fully under military control. People whispered that it was no longer a study, but something much bigger, something that could change the balance of power across the planet. Hannah still worked there every day. She felt connected to the ship in a way she could not explain when she walked near it. The lights sometimes flickered softly as if greeting her. Others noticed it too, and started calling her the voice of the ship, though she never understood why it reacted to her more than to anyone else. Scientists had been trying to open more parts of the structure, but it was not easy. The material healed itself when they tried to drill or cut it. Even laser beams only left warm marks that disappeared minutes later. Then one morning, something unexpected happened when Hannah placed her hand on the inner wall like She used to the ship hummed louder and a narrow pathway opened before her. It looked like a silver door melting into a new shape. She stepped back, shocked. The team rushed forward to record it. Sensors showed massive energy rising from deep inside the ship. The doorway led to another chamber hidden until that day when they entered the new space. They found strange seats, curved walls, and thin glass tubes connected to glowing panels. No one could tell what purpose these things served, but it looked like a control room. The ship began to emit low vibrations, almost like it was breathing or waiting for a command. It was as if it could sense their curiosity and wanted to respond. Hana noticed one detail: the symbols on the walls glowed brighter when people spoke louder, almost as if the ship listened to sound patterns. Scientists recorded the vibrations and translated them into waves, trying to see if they matched any known language. But the result showed something new. The patterns were alive. They changed whenever someone got closer to the ship one evening when the others left. Hana stayed behind again. She whispered softly, asking who had built it and why it was here. Suddenly, the lights on the control panel blinked twice and a faint projection appeared in the air. It showed a distant star surrounded by broken fragments like pieces of a sun that had exploded. The image lasted only a second, then faded, leaving Hana stunned. After that night, Hana's name reached the highest levels of the operation. The generals wanted to know exactly what she saw and how she triggered the projection. She explained every detail, but they did not believe it at first, until the same thing happened again when she placed her hand on the control surface. The hologram appeared clearer this time, showing not only stars but also tall, bright figures standing beside a similar ship. The figures were moving like they were alive. Then the image froze, showing a symbol that looked like a circle cut in half. The scientists realized it might be a memory from the ship, something left behind by the ones who made it. They started calling it the memory room, because every time Hana touched the panel, new images appeared, sometimes of planets, sometimes of unknown creatures, and sometimes of what looked like wars in the sky. The data from these projections was sent to hidden laboratories across the world and coded under the name Origin. The information spread quietly through different governments, but only a few people knew the full truth. The ship was not just a machine, it was a message left behind from another civilization, and it carried records of their journey. Scientists found out that its energy core was still active, buried deep under layers of metal. The readings showed endless power, something far beyond nuclear energy. When they tried to reach it with robotic arms, the machines stopped working. Their circuits fried without reason. Hana suggested that maybe the ship protected its core from anything not alive, so they decided to send her instead with a small team. They walked through narrow tunnels filled with thin mist and soft blue light. After hours of slow movement, they reached the core chamber. It was round, huge, and glowing like a beating heart. Every pulse released a wave that shook the air gently. The closer Hana moved, the more the energy changed color from blue to golden. She felt warmth covering her skin. Her breath slowed, and her heartbeat matched the pulse of the core. She felt as if the ship could feel her too. When she touched the outer shell, a rush of images flashed through her mind. She saw distant planets covered with glass oceans, creatures that looked both human and alien flying, cities, and finally destruction, fire consuming everything. Then darkness. She fell to the ground unconscious. The team rushed to her aid, pulling her back. She woke minutes later, shaking her eyes filled with tears. She said the ship was not broken. It was abandoned. Its creators had fled a war, their world had died, and they sent their ships across the universe, hoping one would survive and carry their knowledge to another world. Now it made sense why the ship responded to her. She was the first living being to connect with its memory after thousands of years. The message from her experience was carefully documented and shared with only a few top members of the project. Generals debated what to do next. Some wanted to use the technology to build weapons, others wanted to study it peacefully. Hana begged them to keep it safe and not turn it into something destructive, but power was stronger than wisdom, and soon secret orders were given to reverse engineer parts of the ship. Scientists were forced to create copies of the metal using human materials, but nothing worked right. The energy source refused to connect with anything made by humans whenever they tried to draw power from it. The lights inside the ship dimmed as if warning them not to continue. Hana grew restless. She felt the ship was in pain if such a thing was even possible. She started spending her nights near the core chamber, speaking softly to it, telling it that not all humans wanted to harm it. Sometimes, she felt it listened. Small flashes of light moved across the walls when she spoke quietly. After months of failed experiments, one engineer found that the ship responded positively when human emotion was present, not just movement, but genuine feeling. When Hana stood near the wall and thought about peace, the readings on their monitors became stable. When soldiers stood there thinking about fear or anger, the readings turned chaotic. That discovery changed everything. The scientists realized the ship could read emotional energy. It was not built for war, it was built to connect with living minds. This idea divided the team. Some called it nonsense, but Hana believed it fully. She told them the ship might be waiting for trust before it would fully reveal itself. In the following weeks, more strange things started happening. Some scientists heard soft sounds in their ears like whispers. Others saw faint figures near the ship at night. One soldier claimed he saw a tall, glowing shape watching him before disappearing. The tension grew as everyone felt something unseen was now awake among them. Then came the day the world above almost discovered the secret. A powerful storm hit the desert, and one of the energy waves from the ship reached the surface. Several satellites detected it, and news channels began reporting about a strange magnetic field over Mongolia. The military moved fast, cutting off every transmission and sending false weather explanations. But it was a close call. The project leaders grew nervous. They wanted results fast before public eyes turned toward them. They ordered Hana to activate the core again. This time fully. They said they wanted to measure the full energy output. Hana refused, at first saying the ship was not ready, but they forced her to do it. She stood in front of the control panel, her hands shaking when she touched it. The ship started to glow brighter than ever. The entire base trembled. Alarms rang and screens showed numbers jumping. Beyond limits, the ship's voice filled the air, low, deep, and filled with sorrow. Then everything stopped. The light faded, leaving the room cold. The scientists stood frozen. No one spoke for minutes. The readings showed something impossible for a few seconds. The ship had produced more energy than the entire country could use in a year. Then it went silent completely. No hum, no lights, nothing. It felt dead. Hana cried. She felt she had betrayed it. The officers ordered everyone to leave the area. They wanted to reset the systems, but nothing worked. It remained dark for days. People thought it was finally over. But Hana refused to give up. She returned every night alone, sitting near the wall, whispering stories about the world, about humanity, about hope and dreams. One night, while she was half asleep, a small glow appeared again under her hand, faint but warm. She smiled, knowing it had forgiven her. She whispered softly that she would help it heal, and together they would find its true purpose. She did not know that this small moment was the start of something that would soon reach beyond Earth and call to the stars once again. The ship remained quiet for several days after Hana's last attempt to reach it. But the scientists still worked around the clock, collecting data and checking every system. The power lines around the base were rebuilt, and stronger shields were added above ground to hide the energy waves from satellites. The world outside still believed it was a mining site, but inside everyone knew they were standing on something that could change all of human history. Hana came to the ship every morning, touching its surface softly, like greeting an old friend. She could feel a faint warmth again deep under the cold metal, as if it was breathing quietly, waiting for her to speak. When she closed her eyes, she sometimes heard soft tones like music, very distant, but gentle, and she believed it was trying to talk to her in its own way. The military scientists wanted progress. They started focusing on decoding the strange glowing symbols covering the walls of the inner chambers. Hana was part of the translation group. They used every tool, every language base and computer program available, but nothing matched until one day an engineer noticed that the symbols changed shape based on sound frequency. When he played a single note on a small speaker, the symbols shifted slightly. When he changed the pitch, they moved again. Hana realized it was a form of sound communication like music. Each shape carried emotion, not words. When they recorded the movements and turned them into tones, it created a melody, soft, slow, and filled with sadness. They began to call it the song of the ship. They played it for hours and noticed that during the melody the lights across the ship glowed brighter. The ship responded as if remembering something. One night when most people had gone, Hana stayed back and played the same tones using a small handheld device. The music echoed softly through the chamber. The walls shimmered and then a faint blue mist appeared floating in front of her. The mist formed shapes. Slowly turning into moving pictures, she saw stars, planets, and then tall glowing beings walking through a bright city floating above a blue ocean. They had long arms, gentle faces, and eyes full of light. The vision showed them boarding the same kind of ship now buried in the desert. Then everything went dark. She heard a soft voice whispering something she could not understand. The images faded, leaving her shaking and breathless. She realized she had seen the creators of the ship the next morning. She told the team what happened. They asked her to repeat it, but when she tried again, nothing appeared. It seemed the ship chose when to reveal its memories. The scientists started calling these events projections, and they built new equipment around the control room to capture them for study. One projection showed explosions in space, entire planets burning. Another showed the glowing beings leaving their home world. The scientists finally agreed the ship had recorded its own past, storing it. Like a living memory, the images were old, older than any human civilization. When they analyzed the light frequency inside the holograms, they discovered strange codes hidden in the colors, messages written within the light itself. The translation took months, but what they found shocked everyone. The messages spoke of a dying star, a war for survival, and an attempt to send ships away from destruction. The beings hoped at least one ship would find safety somewhere across the universe. Hana listened quietly, feeling both sorrow and wonder. She knew now that the ship had not fallen by accident. It had been left behind on purpose. Soon, new strange things began to happen. Some scientists complained about strange dreams. They saw the same bright cities and the same tall beings from Hana's vision. Others said they heard whispers when they walked near the ship. The air around it felt heavy, like it was charged with thoughts. The generals grew uneasy. They feared the ship might be affecting human minds. Hana tried to calm them, saying it was only trying to communicate, but they did not believe her. They ordered her to stay away for a few days and limited her access. She watched from a distance, feeling like she had been separated from a part of herself. The next week, the ship's outer surface began to change. The smooth silver metal started forming new patterns across its body, like veins glowing slowly in rhythm with a heartbeat. Hana knew it was reacting to her absence, calling for her to return. She begged the officers to let her back in. They refused until strange energy spikes threatened the whole base. Then they called her. When Hana touched the ship again, the light stabilized and the vibrations stopped. The officers could not deny what they saw. The ship trusted her and somehow needed her presence. They allowed her to continue her work, but under strict watch. This time, when she stood near the core chamber, she heard clear sounds, almost like voices overlapping. In harmony, the scientists recorded them and slowed them down to human hearing, and they found they were messages not in words but patterns, like someone trying to tell a story through waves. Hana closed her eyes and let the sounds wash over her. She saw again those glowing beings. This time, she saw their faces clearer. One of them looked directly at her and raised its hand, then pointed toward the sky filled with red light. Then she saw their ships flying away, one by one, some exploding before leaving their world. She woke with tears in her eyes, whispering they were running away from death. The generals now understood that the ship was not a weapon, but a vessel of survival carrying memories of a lost civilization. But still they wanted to know if its power could be used for human defense. Engineers tried again to copy the energy source, but failed. The material around the core resisted every human attempt to touch it, so they decided to build a system that could read its output. Without opening it, Hana helped design it. But the moment they powered the reader, strange events began. The lights in the base flickered, machines turned on and off by themselves, and distant rumbling filled the tunnels. People panicked, but Hana told them not to fear. She said it was trying to communicate with them. The energy reader then displayed an image on its small screen. It was the same star system Hana saw earlier, with one planet circled in bright red. It was Earth. The scientists stared, in silence, realizing the ship knew exactly where it was and it was marking this planet for a reason. That night, Hana stayed inside the control room again while everyone else slept. She whispered to the ship, asking what it wanted from humanity. The air grew thick, a gentle wind moved through the chamber, and the projection appeared again, this time showing Earth thousands of years ago, forests, mountains, and oceans. Then she saw fireballs falling from the sky, and strange lights touching the ground. She saw people from ancient times looking up in fear and wonder. Then the image changed, showing the same ship she was standing in, landing softly among mountains. She saw the glowing beings stepping out and looking at the sky as if saying goodbye. Before disappearing into the light, the vision ended, leaving Hana crying softly. She understood now the ship had been left here for humans, not by mistake, but by choice. The beings must have known that one day humanity would be ready to find it and learn from it. The next morning, Hana told the scientists everything she saw. Many did not believe her, but a few agreed that ancient stories around the world might hold truth about visitors from the sky. Old carvings, cave paintings, and myths all described glowing beings who came from above, bringing knowledge that changed early human history. They started comparing these records with what they learned from the ship, and the connection was undeniable. Hana felt both hope and fear. Hope because she believed the ship carried wisdom that could help humans grow. Fear because the memories showed destruction and war. She worried that humanity might repeat the same mistake. The more they studied the ship, the more it seemed to respond emotionally when people worked with care. The lights glowed bright when they acted with greed or anger. The lights dimmed. One soldier said it was like the ship could feel human hearts. As weeks turned into months, the project changed direction. They no longer called it a weapon test, they called it a restoration. The goal was to heal the ship and understand its full purpose. Hana spent more and more time near the core chamber. She could feel it becoming stronger sometimes. When she closed her eyes, she felt warmth spreading through her chest as if the ship was sharing its energy with her. One night she felt something new, a pulse inside her mind, not from outside but from within. She heard a voice, soft and distant, saying, "We remember." And then silence. She opened, her eyes trembling, knowing she was no longer just studying the ship, she was part of it, connected by something beyond science. The next morning when she entered the control room, the walls glowed brighter than ever, showing new symbols spinning slowly. In the air she smiled, knowing the ship was alive, and that its story had only just begun. Months passed inside the hidden desert base, and what began as a secret research project had now turned into something close to a new world under the ground. There were labs, tunnels, lights, and rooms built around the alien ship. Scientists and engineers worked every hour of the day trying to understand how it functioned. Hana still spent more time inside the ship than anyone else. She was calm, patient, and the only person it truly responded to. When she entered the chambers, the walls glowed softly, and the low hum returned. The others treated her with quiet respect, even though many still could not explain the strange bond between her and the ship. She often sat alone near the core chamber, listening to its soft rhythm, feeling its quiet presence around her. Sometimes she thought it was like a sleeping giant, waking slowly after a very long dream. The military leaders were growing restless. They wanted results, something they could show as progress to their higher authorities. Scientists warned that the ship was not a weapon, but the generals did not listen. They saw energy readings that could power cities, and they wanted to use it to strengthen defense systems. They ordered the engineers to study how the energy could be transferred into human machines. Hana disagreed. She said the ship's power was not meant to be controlled by humans, but shared in balance. Her words were ignored, and soon they began testing new devices that could absorb energy from the outer surface. At first it worked. The readings went high and the equipment glowed bright. But after a few minutes, the lights of the ship dimmed suddenly and the temperature dropped. The power they pulled out returned as a wave strong enough to burn every circuit and shut down the base. The ship went silent again, as if disappointed by their greed. The next few days were filled with tension. Soldiers guarded every entrance, and the scientists argued over what went wrong. Hana stayed inside the ship, trying to calm it again. She spoke softly, telling it that not all humans were the same, that many wanted peace and understanding. As she whispered, the air began to warm again, and the blue lights returned. The hum grew steady and the energy levels stabilized. Everyone watched in silence through the glass walls, realizing she had done in minutes what machines could not. The leaders finally accepted that they needed her cooperation. They gave her full access to the main control chamber so she could continue communication under their observation. She started documenting her talks with the ship. Sometimes she heard sounds like faint voices, sometimes only music, but she wrote down everything carefully, believing that every sound had a meaning and every tone carried emotion. The ship seemed to learn from her voice and from the kindness in her words. Weeks later, something new began. The ship started showing patterns of light on the walls. These patterns moved like streams flowing from one point to another, forming lines and circles. Hana noticed they matched the rhythm of human speech. Scientists realized they could use these patterns as a form of translation. They built devices to project words into sounds that the ship could recognize. Soon the ship responded with lights forming symbols that slowly turned into clear images. Everyone watched as the first direct exchange happened between human and machine. The image that appeared showed a planet burning in fire, pieces of land breaking apart and falling into space. Then it showed other ships leaving that world, flying away in different directions, and one of them heading toward Earth. The team stood silent. They had just seen the final memory of the civilization that built this ship. The being who left it behind had given up everything to save a small part of their knowledge from extinction. Hana stood frozen as the images faded. She realized that they were watching history. Not a story, but a real moment from another world. The scientists analyzed the projection and found a coded message hidden in the light. It said that the beings had left the ship on Earth because this planet had the right balance of energy and life. They believed that one day intelligent beings would rise here and find it to continue their story. The words made Hana's heart heavy. She understood that the ship was more than a machine. It was a gift meant to guide humanity toward something greater. But the military leaders still thought about power. They began building copies of the ship's systems using human technology. They called it Project Reflection. They believed if they could understand how the ship stored energy, they could create endless power for cities and weapons at the same time. Hana warned them again, but her voice was weaker now. She was tired, and the air in the base felt heavier every day. Then came a day when something extraordinary happened while the engineers tested their new power systems. The ship suddenly released a large wave of light that filled the whole chamber. People shielded their eyes when it faded. They found themselves surrounded by floating shapes like glowing dust, moving slowly in the air. These shapes joined together, forming tall figures, the same kind that Hana had seen in the visions. Everyone froze in shock. They could see through them, but their presence felt real. One of the figures moved forward, raising its hand as if greeting Hana. She felt tears in her eyes. She could not move. The figure pointed at her, and then at the generals standing near the control panel. Then it touched the core and vanished into light, leaving behind only silence. The scientists rushed to record everything and found new energy readings higher than ever. The ship had shown them its creators for the first time, like a memory brought to life to remind them what it stood for. After that night, no one dared to touch the ship without permission. The military leaders held long meetings deciding what to do next. They realized they could not control it, and that made them uneasy. They decided to bring in new minds, physicists and linguists from around the world under fake names. The project was becoming too big to hide. Hana helped the new people understand what they were dealing with. She taught them how to speak gently near the ship, how to stay calm, and how to listen rather than command. The ship started to respond better, showing more data and more symbols. It began projecting maps of distant stars, galaxies, and unknown systems. The scientists realized it was trying to show them its origin, maybe even the way back to where it came from. The maps showed a point far beyond any known human reach. Yet the details were so clear that it felt like the ship still remembered every inch of its journey through space. One evening, as Hana and a small group studied the new map, the ship started to shake slightly and the lights turned red. Alarms sounded across the base, power lines failed, and everyone ran for cover. Hana stood still, feeling the same warmth from before the voice returned. In her mind, whispering the same words, "We remember, then louder, we awaken." The lights burst across the walls, turning from red to gold, and then everything went quiet again. The screen showed new readings, energy rising higher than ever before. The ship had come fully alive. It began to move slightly, breaking through some of the metal supports around it. Engineers panicked, thinking it might explode, but it did not. Instead, it hummed deeply and settled again, leaving only silence, the hum after. That moment never stopped. It continued softly like a heartbeat, echoing through every corridor of the base from that day. Everyone knew the ship was no longer just a relic. It was awake, and it was watching. Hana could not sleep that night. She walked alone through the tunnels until she reached the core chamber. The lights glowed softly around her. She placed her hand on the wall and whispered, asking what it wanted to do. Now, the wall pulsed with a faint blue glow, and for the first time she heard clear words inside her mind, not as sound but as feeling. The ship said, "We wait, we learn, we prepare." She understood that it was waiting for something bigger than itself, something that involved both its creators and humanity together. She left the chamber quietly, knowing that whatever was coming next would not stay hidden forever. The ship had been asleep for thousands of years, but now it was fully awake. And somewhere beyond the stars, something might have already heard its call. After the light faded and the sky turned calm again, the world began to move in a strange new direction. News about the event in the desert had already reached every corner of the planet. There were videos, pictures, and signals that no one could explain. Governments tried to hide it, but the truth had spread too far. Millions of people watched the glowing sky that night, and many claimed they felt peace. For the first time in their lives, scientists everywhere wanted to know what really happened and who the woman was who stood beside the alien ship. Hana became known as the voice of the light. She never wanted fame, but the world had already chosen her as the symbol of a new beginning. She was calm and humble. She spoke to everyone in simple words, saying that what happened was not magic or invasion, but the start of understanding between two kinds of life, one born from the stars and one from the earth. Inside the desert base, things had changed completely. The ship no longer frightened anyone. It felt alive, but gentle. Its lights moved softly and the hum sounded like wind through trees. Scientists worked peacefully studying its systems. But now, with respect instead of greed, Hana often walked through the corridors speaking with young researchers. She told them to listen, not only with their machines but with their hearts, because the ship responded to honesty, not power. One day, when she placed her hand on the surface of the ship, a faint image appeared again. It showed a planet full of green forests and shining rivers and a message that said life grows when it is cared for. She smiled and told the others that the creators of the ship had shared one last lesson. It was not about power. It was about harmony. The team began writing a report that explained everything in simple terms and promised the world that they would not use the technology for war. Outside the base, the world was still struggling with change. Some nations wanted to claim the ship for themselves, others wanted to destroy it out of fear. But people had seen too much to go back. The skybeam had touched every country, and the peaceful feeling it left behind could not be forgotten. Thousands gathered near the desert fence every night, lighting candles and singing quietly. As if waiting for another message, the military tried to move them away, but even the soldiers no longer felt the same. They stood silently watching the sky. Hana saw them from afar and said softly, "They are waiting for hope, not orders." She asked the leaders to open the gates and let people see the ship even from a distance. After long talks, they agreed. For the first time in history, people from all parts of the world came together to witness something that belonged to no one and everyone. At the same time, weeks passed and strange but beautiful changes began to happen around the world. The storms became calmer, the seasons became more stable, and scientists noticed a slow healing in the atmosphere. Places that had been dry for decades began to see rain again. No one could explain it, but Hana said quietly, "The ship healed more than metal. When it woke, it touched the heart of the planet." She was right. The energy that once caused fear now brought balance to nature. The scientists studied readings and found that the ship's core was spreading small waves through the ground, almost like roots of energy connecting deep with the earth. The planet was reacting as if it remembered something old, something pure. the team began, to call it the restoration pulse, and soon people across the world could feel it too. Plants grew faster. Animals returned to lost forests, and humans started to look at each other with a new kind of respect. Hannah spent her days near the ship, but at night. She walked outside alone. She looked up at the stars and often whispered, as if talking to someone far away. She felt their presence. Sometimes she heard their voice, gently saying, "You have done well. We will watch from the light." She would close her eyes and smile, knowing that they were not gone. They were still guiding her from beyond. One night while she stood outside, she noticed the ship glowing brighter than usual, and then a soft sphere of light floated out of it, slowly moving toward her. She did not step back. Instead, she raised her hand. The sphere stopped above her palm and shone with colors she had never seen. It felt warm and alive. Then it dissolved into a small crystal, clear and glowing softly. She understood it was a gift. The final link between the ship and humanity. She took it carefully and said, "Thank you," then placed it inside a chamber made of glass so it would stay safe for generations to come. Soon scientists used the knowledge from the ship to build clean energy systems that changed the world forever. Cities began to shine with soft, blue light, powered by the same harmony. Energy. People no longer fought for oil or resources because the ship had taught them how to draw endless power from the balance between earth and sky. Hannah became an advisor to global leaders. Though she spoke little, when she did, her words carried weight. She told them that the real power was not in the energy but in unity. She said, "If you divide what was meant to unite, it will fade." And they listened, because they had seen what happened. When humans tried to take too much peace, began to grow slowly across nations. Trade wars and conflicts reduced. People wanted to build, not destroy. They remembered the night when the sky turned gold and the warmth touched their hearts. That night had changed them all. Years went by, and the desert base became a place of learning. Not secrecy. Students from all over the world came to study there. Hannah was older now, her hair silver, her voice softer, but her eyes still bright every morning. She visited the ship, touching its surface as if greeting an old friend. She would talk to it quietly about the progress of humans, about how cities were healing and people were planting more trees. The ship would glow faintly in reply. One evening, she stood there longer than usual. The scientists nearby saw her smile peacefully. Then, the lights of the ship changed for the first time in years. It glowed gold, the same color as the sky on the night of the arrival. The hum grew stronger, filling the base with warmth. Everyone stopped what they were doing. Hannah whispered, "Thank you for trusting us," and slowly the lights faded back to blue. It was as if the ship had nodded back to her. After that day, she spent more time writing. She wrote her memories, the story of the ship, the mistakes and the lessons, and the hope it brought. She wanted future generations to know that what mattered most was not the technology or the discovery, but the kindness that made it all possible. One evening, she finished her last page and left her notebook beside the crystal she had received. She looked at the ship and said, "You are home now." Then walked outside into the cool desert wind. That night, the stars shone brighter than ever before, and one star in the distance blinked slowly 3 times as if saying goodbye. Hannah smiled and closed, her eyes feeling peace like never before. The next morning, the scientists found her sitting peacefully near the ship. Her notebook closed, her face calm as if she was listening to the hum one last time. The world continued to move forward, guided by the lessons she left behind. Children learned about her in schools. Her words were written on the walls of the desert academy. The ship remained silent but glowing softly as if keeping watch. People came from every corner of the planet to see it. They brought flowers and letters thanking the beings who left it behind. Some even said when they stood near it, they could feel warmth in their chest, like the earth itself was breathing softly. Time passed, and humans began to travel deeper into space, carrying with them technology born from the same harmony energy they had once feared. On every mission, they carried a small symbol of light, the mark of the restored ship, the bond between 2 worlds that began in the silence of a forgotten desert and grew into a story of trust and rebirth that no one would ever forget. After the light faded and the sky turned calm again, the world began to move in a strange new direction. News about the event in the desert had already reached every corner of the planet. There were videos, pictures, and signals that no one could explain. Governments tried to hide it, but the truth had spread too far. Millions of people watched the glowing sky that night, and many claimed they felt peace for the first time in their lives. Scientists everywhere wanted to know what really happened and who the woman was, who stood beside the alien ship. Hannah became known as the voice of the light. She never wanted fame, but the world had already chosen her as the symbol of a new beginning. She was calm and humble. She spoke to everyone in simple words, saying that what happened was not magic or invasion, but the start of understanding between two kinds of life. One born from the stars and one from the earth. Inside the desert base, things had changed completely. The ship no longer frightened anyone. It felt alive but gentle. Its lights moved softly and the hum sounded like wind through trees. Scientists worked peacefully studying its systems, but now with respect instead of greed. Hannah often walked through the corridors speaking with young researchers. She told them to listen, not only with their machines but with their hearts, because the ship responded to honesty, not power. One day, when she placed her hand on the surface of the ship, a faint image appeared again. It showed a planet full of green forests and shining rivers, and a message that said, "Life grows when it is cared for." She smiled and told the others that the creators of the ship had shared one last lesson. It was not about power, it was about harmony. The team began writing a report that explained everything in simple terms and promised the world that they would not use the technology for war. Outside the base, the world was still struggling with change. Some nations wanted to claim the ship for themselves. Others wanted to destroy it out of fear. But people had seen too much to go back. The skybeam had touched every country, and the peaceful feeling it left behind could not be forgotten. Thousands gathered near the desert fence every night, lighting candles and singing quietly as if waiting for another message. The military tried to move them away, but even the soldiers no longer felt the same. They stood silently watching the sky. Hannah saw them from afar and said softly, "They are waiting for hope, not orders." She asked the leaders to open the gates and let people see the ship even from a distance. After long talks, they agreed for the first time. In history, people from all parts of the world came together to witness something that belonged to no one and everyone at the same time. Weeks passed and strange but beautiful changes began to happen around the world. The storms became calmer, the seasons became more stable, and scientists noticed a slow healing in the atmosphere. Places that had been dry for decades began to see rain again. No one could explain it, but Hannah said quietly, "The ship healed more than metal when it woke. It touched the heart of the planet." She was right. The energy that once caused fear now brought balance to nature. The scientists studied readings and found that the ship's core was spreading small waves through the ground, almost like roots of energy connecting. Deep with the earth, the planet was reacting as if it remembered something old, something pure. The team began to call it the Restoration Pulse, and soon people across the world could feel it too. Plants grew faster, animals returned to lost forests, and humans started to look at each other with a new kind of respect. Hannah spent her days near the ship, but at night she walked outside alone. She looked up at the stars and often whispered as if talking to someone far away. She felt their presence. Sometimes she heard their voice gently saying, "You have done well. We will watch from the light." She would close her eyes and smile, knowing that they were not gone. They were still guiding her from beyond one night. While she stood outside, she noticed the ship glowing brighter than usual, and then a soft sphere of light floated out of it, slowly moving toward her. She did not step back. Instead, she raised her hand. The sphere stopped above her palm and shone with colors she had never seen. It felt warm and alive. Then it dissolved into a small crystal, clear and glowing softly. She understood it was a gift, the final link between the ship and humanity. She took it carefully and said, "Thank you," then placed it inside a chamber made of glass so it would stay safe for generations to come. Soon scientists used the knowledge from the ship to build clean energy systems that changed the world forever. Cities began to shine with soft, blue light, powered by the same harmony. Energy. People no longer fought for oil or resources because the ship had taught them how to draw endless power from the balance between earth and sky. Hannah became an advisor to global leaders. Though she spoke little, when she did, her words carried weight. She told them that the real power was not in the energy but in unity. She said, if you divide what was meant to unite, it will fade. And they listened, because they had seen what happened. When humans tried to take too much peace, began to grow slowly across nations. Trade wars and conflicts reduced. People wanted to build, not destroy. They remembered the night when the sky turned gold and the warmth touched their hearts. That night had changed them all. Years went by, and the desert base became a place of learning. Not secrecy, students from all over the world came to study there. Hannah was older now, her hair silver, her voice softer, but her eyes still bright every morning. She visited the ship, touching its surface as if greeting an old friend. She would talk to it quietly about the progress of humans, about how cities were healing and people were planting more trees. The ship would glow faintly in reply one evening. She stood there longer than usual. The scientists nearby saw her smile peacefully. Then, the lights of the ship changed for the first time in years. It glowed gold, the same color as the sky on the night of the arrival. The hum grew stronger, filling the base with warmth. Everyone stopped what they were doing. Hannah whispered, "Tea."